All right, everyone. This is the volume development meeting. I'll start with a couple of updates since we last talked, and I'll put everything in the first update email and send that out. It'll either come from me or Sarah, but we'll pull that together. We have finally gotten everybody's contact information, so I sent out the link to the P6 resources file. So everybody should have access to that. I've set out, I think, all but one firm's access to the place for their projects. If you were a firm that worked on the carryover phase, it's still the same place. So you should still have access. If you aren't able to get there, let me know and I'll try and figure out how to. But since when I went to add you, you were already there, so I didn't know what to do. So I'm just hoping that you guys still have access. So any carryover firms should be fine. Looking at the P6 resources, we have the meeting videos. So there's Jim. We have the kickoff meeting video there, and I'll add this video once we finish. We have the NC1 map XML files that go into somewhere in your documents folder that gives you the reference back to the NC1 map and Transmodeler, the output macro, the Transmodeler default file. So there's the P6 default file. The volume development data, which we'll be talking about. This is a KMZ of all the P6 carryover projects. And then here is our new documentation of the process for both volume development and modeling. So download it, give us any comments you have. We'll go through this as we do the volumes. And like I said, there's also the model development guidance. I don't think anything has changed substantially from the last round. So we have all of that. So let me, and also as far as communication, as I said in the kickoff meeting, make sure you are copying Spot 6.0, Peter, and Sarah. So make sure you're copying Sarah at PT Engineering on everything. She is in charge of the tracking sheet. So if she's not copied, it probably won't show up on the tracking sheet and probably won't show up on the weekly updates. So make sure everyone is copying both of them. We'll also be putting out a coordination list in that folder as well once we're finalizing that. So that'll have everybody's who's copied on everything for that. An update on schedule. Elise, is it correct that we're still waiting on a few NTPs?
Yes, that is correct. However, they did move a little bit more yesterday. So it was just it's the four of you who haven't received them, you're going to get them. It's just we had a little problem internally, like we always do. But anyway, we're good to go.
All right. So I guess we got bad news on the front end and bad news on the back end. It's going to take us a little while to get up and running. So the idea of having your first model due the 19th is probably not going to happen. So we're going to probably push that out to the 26th, where we're getting our first ones in. So that's the bad news on the front end as far as schedule. And the bad news on the back end is we requested August 15th is a delivery date, and we're told that that was not acceptable. I guess they are Still contemplating doing a 3-year STIP cycle for this as opposed to the 4-year. So there's still the possibility that they will be moving ahead with the draft TIP this fall, which means they need everything from us by the end of June. So we're losing 6 weeks on the back end and a week on the front end. So it's going to be a little more aggressive schedule, I think, based on the number of projects and the man days. It should be still should be viable. So we're going to be resetting the how much it's due. I think we were having it 1 per week and a few weeks with 2, and now we're going to be probably half the time or so. Probably every other week having 2 models due. I think with the number of models that are already developed, that shouldn't be too bad an issue. So let's move on to the SPOT 6.0 volume development and talk about that. So I think the easiest thing is probably just to walk through a sample project. So I'll do that. And actually, so in the volume development folder, let me start there. There are 4 different templates. So make sure you copy these out. Don't move them out. Copy them out, and don't save them within Dropbox. So there will be really for most firms. We're just going to talk about the type 1s because that's what most firms are doing. So there's a standard 4-leg intersection and then a 5-leg. We'll just talk about the 4-leg today. And then there's this P6 volume data KMZ file, and that is here. So within that, there's a layer with the 2018 AEDT stations. Again, we're using 2018, even though 2019 is available. The 2020 to 2030 P6 growth rate, so that'll give us a 10-year growth rate. I don't think you'll have to worry about the express lane, GP lanes. The NCDOT functional class layer and state maintained roadways layer, and then the urban boundaries. So this is what is included in that. If you click on these, it will give you the legend for those. So we will go ahead. I'm going to do H192828. So the first step is to go in and rename it. And then you can remove the information on the back end. And Mark and Lee, if I'm doing anything wrong, stop me, because this will be my first one of the new submittal phase. So
cool, man.
So once you open the file, the first thing to do is rename it to the spot ID. And you will input the information. If there's a TIP number, the county, pretty sure this is Mecklenburg. And then the route, and this is NC 16 Providence Road. And it is at, I believe, Fairview and Sardis. It's Fairview Road, Sardis Road. And then you can put in your roadway names. So we'll actually probably make sure with the count that this is slightly skewed. I would assume that this is the north leg, so let me check the count. And as we've sent out all the counts, so you'll get a zip folder. And in that zip folder will be a PDF, the PPD file, and there should be an Excel file. Mark will talk about why we don't have one in here, but we'll do that later. So you can extract those out. I've created the Excel file, so you should get this Excel file. So opening this, it does have Providence Road as the northern leg, so we can go in and put Providence Road there. Paste it there, and then this, I believe, is the Sardis Road side. And if there is an SR number, please put that in. I'm not going to look it up. I'm pretty sure both of these are SR routes. So if there is a SR route, please add it. And then the next step is to determine the area type. So in Google Earth, we can open up the smooth urban boundaries. And if you are within a colored shape, it means you're in an urban area. So this will be an urban project. So if we were to zoom all the way out, you can see the areas that are urban. So anything that's inside of those is urban, everything outside is rural. Okay, once we have that, we can go in and start looking at the TMC data. And actually, before we do that, we should add a note as to what is the turning percentage source data. So that is it's count 1372. So usually we put the count ID. 1372, the date of the count, and it was March 19th, 2019. Yeah, March 19th, 2019. And it was the traffic group and the count. Okay. And if you do anything that you think it bears explanation, make sure you're putting it in the volume development notes. Okay, so we will go in. So this is NC16 at this road, Fairview Road. And you'll enter the route type of each one. So this is interstate, local, NC, SR, and US. So we can go back and turn on the state maintained roadway layer. If I turn off roads, you will see that it appears as though Sardis Fairview actually a local road. Okay, so NC16 is obviously an NC route. It appears as though the others are local. So we'll put that in. So this is an NC route. And really, local and SR are actually the same. So it's probably not that big a deal. We said this is 1372, count number. So you will fill in that information. It brings in the leg names from the first sheet. So if this isn't filled out, go back to the first sheet. So at this point, you will open the Excel file provided and copy the data and paste it into the table here. And just verify that everything. So this is Providence from the north, that matches the count. So this will determine the AM and PM peaks, things like that, and the turn percentages. To verify that and to check it, we'll actually go into the count, and we will do a screen capture of the daily. And place it in this box. And then we'll go into each of the peak hours. So this is the AM. And as you do this, verify that the information above it is consistent. So we have 400, 504, and 65, 89, 1096, and 289. So this matches. So just make sure that the pasted value matches that. If for some reason you have something where it doesn't match, note that why it doesn't match. If you have an interchange and it's a combination of counts, you may not have this, and just note that, just put it in red that it's a combined count, no figures exist. Also with count data, we still, some firms are out there manually counting and they take breaks throughout the day. So we have been getting some counts where there's a 15-minute break. And if that's the case, you should average the period before and the period after to create the missing period. If there's a 30-minute break, again, just average, if there's a 30-minute break, average the 15-minute before, 15-minute after, and put it in for both of those. We're hoping that nobody's taking breaks during the peak hours, but you can hope all you want, and it doesn't always happen. So again, we would copy that next one, and I'm not going to bore you with that. In this tab, there's also the ability to interpolate. We'll get into that in a second as we get into the back into this. So the first step here is to bring in each AADT, the 2018 AADT for each leg. So we'll turn on those volumes. And this is a good one because it has a 2018 AADT for all legs. If there is no 2018 AADT, we need to check if there's a 2017. So 2017 and 2018 are both acceptable AEDTs for this. If there's nothing in 2017 or 2018, we assume that it is not a valid count. So if this did not have a 2018 count and it was just a 31,000 back in 2016, we would not actually use that count. We would use proportioning or something like that. So with this, we would basically place each of these. This is an easy one because all 4 of them are here. So I'll start with 38.5 and then 35,000. So 38,500. 30,000. And then 35,000 on the south leg. I'm going to stop before I type in the last one and talk about sources. So source A is where the AEDT is at the intersection. And what we define as at the intersection is that the count is that there's nothing that would substantially affect traffic. And what we consider substantially affect traffic is commercial driveways or public roadways. So I would assume this is some sort of public roadway. And since this is outside of that, I would consider this a type B. This one is pretty much right at the intersection. I don't see any major intersections or anything major between here and the intersection. I would consider that an A. Again, here, this appears to also be nothing substantial between it and the intersection. That would be an A. And then here, there's some access. It's not commercial, doesn't appear to be commercial access. There's this. Probably just to be safe, I would call this a B. So if we have, so this was a B, each of these was A. And if there wasn't a count at this location, type C is based on traffic count proportions. So what it would use is the total from the traffic count proportioned against the total AADT, and would essentially figure out what that is. So if we were to change this to type C, it will go in and actually use the proportioning down here. So it knows these 3 counts. It compares them against the volumes in here to create a proportion to give you the missing count. So it would proportion that to be 38,400, but we know that actually exists. So we're going to use the 39,000 that's actually there. So with the way they round these things, that's actually probably not too bad a proportion. So 39,000 is the actual, and then we would turn this back to B. So we've talked about A, B, and C. D would be if there's some really extenuating circumstance where there's no count that you feel comfortable enough. We could use some of these adjusted volumes, and then anytime where something needs a note, or you're doing it, this is more common with type 2s as you get along corridors and things. But if there's something that requires a note, you can use type E and then put a note over here. So that is the AADT portion. In the source, the PM peak direction is determined based on the count data. So this should never be changed. The only time you would ever change this is on type 2 when you have a common link between 2 intersections and they flip directions. But for type 1s, they do not change. Next is the number of lanes, and this is the number of lanes according to the the basic number of through lanes. So what we're looking at here is 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10. There's no odd numbers. because capacities aren't defined with any odd numbers. So if it's 3 lanes in one direction and 2 in the other, it would be a 4-lane roadway. If it's 4 and 3, it's a 6-lane roadway. So it's going to be the lesser of the two. And Mark or Lee jump in, but basically we're looking at the number of through lanes at the intersection. So in this case, we have 2 through lanes, 2 receiving lanes. We would consider this a 4-lane. Here we have 2 through lanes, 2 receiving lanes. This would be a 4-lane. Here's 2 through lanes, 2 receiving lanes. That'd be a 4. So really, we're looking at 4-lane on all 4 approaches here. If it is, 2 lanes here and drops back to 1 lane almost immediately, I would consider that actually a 2-lane. So it's really what is the capacity of that upstream segment. In some instances, if there's a pretty large drop in volume at an intersection, we have used notes to say, okay, if there's a 4-lane approaching on this side and it's 2 lanes on this side, and there's a dual left, a through and a right, you could call this a 4-lane and say that the capacity is that of a 4-lane, approaching it, but there's only 1 receiving lane, and the volume drop is sufficient to say the capacity of this is a 4-lane. So with these, each one is going to be a 4-lane. The next is the facility type, and this is the highway capacity manual facility type. So the options are freeway, arterial, multi-lane, 2-lane, and super street. A freeway is pretty self-explanatory. It's control of access for at least 2 miles in each direction. Arterial is anything where the flow is interrupted either at the location or within, and Mark, correct me wrong, if it's 2 miles in each direction, or was it 1 mile in each direction?
You're correct. 2 in each direction, Peter.
Okay,
2 miles each direction.
So you would look. So if in this case, this is a signal. So all of these are arterials. If this were a stop controlled intersection where these two legs stop, you would actually have to, this movement does not stop. You would have to look 2 miles in each direction. Now that is only the case for rural roadways if it's a 2-lane. If this is a 2-lane facility, so arterial is if it comes to a stop or it has intersection control at the main intersection or 2 miles upstream of it. If it is a urban area and it's 2 lanes, everything is arterial. There's no definition in the capacities for an urban 2-lane roadway. For rural areas, you could, if there's nothing within 2 miles, that would be a 2-lane roadway. And then for both urban and rural, if there's no control at the main intersection or for 2 miles in that direction, it would be a multi-lane roadway. So anything more, 4 lanes or more. And then if you have an established super street corridor, and that would be, Mark, have we ever come up with what the number of intersections would have to be for it to be an established super street corridor?
I don't know that we've defined that, Peter. That's a good question.
Well, if you have more than 2 intersections, outside of the intersection, you have, so if the next two intersections are super streets, and I don't know how often that occurs, talk to us and let us know. I think Lee, we might have used this once so far. So yeah, it's not very common, but if you do have a project along a super street corridor, talk to your reviewer and we'll figure it out. So obviously with this one, everything will be arterial. And then the last area for the top here is the classification, and this is the functional classification. So we can turn this on, and we can grab that, and we know. So the red is principal arterial. So really what we're looking at is interstate, arterial, collector, or local. And I think other freeway ties into interstate from my recollection. Is that correct, Mark?
Yep.
Okay, so we have arterials for all four approaches based on this. Yes, so the other is freeway. So yeah, interstate or freeway makes up that classification. Okay, so the last thing we need to look at is the growth source. And that is determined either by its growth rate from the statewide model, or if it is not part of the statewide model, from a county average of the VMT based on the roadway type. So I can turn this off, I can turn on my growth. And so for the northern leg, if you have two, you would average each one. So this is a 1.5 and a 1.6. So the average of that is 1.55. We always round up to the next, so that would be a 1.6. And so growth source, if it's in the statewide model, you choose NCSTM. If it's not, you choose VMT. So this is a 1.6. If a link is not in there and you choose VMT, it will automatically populate that growth rate based on the county that you selected and the facility type. So we have NCSTM for all of ours, so we can do that. So we have 0.8 there. I'll do this one as well. 0.8 and 0.4 on each side. And on the south side, we have 1.9 and 1.9, and even that can figure out that that's 1.9 averaged. Okay, so that is pretty much the steps of creating a type 1 intersection. I don't believe I've forgotten anything. So Mark,
Peter,
jump in if I did.
If you would have them rotate the north arrows on
yes.
that page and the TSV page.
Yep, you caught me. All right, so what you probably is best to do is go ahead and rotate this well, about how it would be if it were true north-south. I guess that's about as north-south-ish as we can get, and see where the north arrow is, and then rotate your north arrow to match roughly that. So do that here and here. So I forget anything else, Mark?
No, you did great. The couple of things I wanted to mention, if I may, we had a counter that loved to take his break at the end of the count. He was amazing. He would count 8 straight hours and take the last 15 minutes off. If you run into that, there's obviously not an average. There's a just one missing at the end. Just copy that over for that particular 15 minutes in your count. And also, and I'm glad you got it on that screen, Peter, if you enter an AADT, Peter, if you'll point to one of those boxes, once you type in the AADT, it overwrites the formula that he has there for you, should you choose a type C. So if you think it's a B, A or a B, and you put in a formula and then change your mind later, no, I really think we ought to use a C there. Remember that you have to put the formula back. You'll need to go to the standard, the one that he sent you, the blank essentially, and either copy that in or rewrite the formula yourself. But just remember that you overwrite that, and the same when you choose NCSTM and enter a growth rate. If that was a mistake and you should have chosen VMT, you've overwritten that formula as well, and you'll need to add that one back. Yep, that's it.
So
Thanks,
changing
Peter.
the VMT does nothing at this point, yeah. Yep.
Jeff put a question up in the box about distance. There was not a distance that referred to when we decided if something was an A or a B or even a C. It was more of a percentage. If you feel that you gotta count, and it's a couple of roads and driveways away. If those roads make up about 30 to 35% of the AADT, then you've probably changed enough to use a C in that one. So Jeff, you're remembering almost correctly. It was the percentage of AADT as opposed to distance. The distance was on the 2 lane. Peter mentioned the 2 miles that you would go to find interrupted flow. Bo asked a great question. Peter, I'm going to push this one back to you. I think I know the answer. If you have a 3-leg intersection, in the past, you had to adjust the equation to get the VC ratio. And Peter, I believe you guys have automated that so that you don't have to adjust the equation for 3 legs anymore. Is that correct?
That is correct. Actually, it no longer factors in. That was we used to have something where the percentage of links that were over capacity had triggered another adjustment factor, and that we've actually revised the methodology, and we now adjust the K on the input. So it actually has gone away. So that is no longer an issue.
Awesome. And one of the things I get caught on, if you do have a 3-leg in the road name, delete out the text road name and put NA or 2 dashes, just something to show that it's
no
not a
approach,
road.
something, yeah. Were there any other, let's see, any other questions there? Okay. It looks like it. I guess any other questions about the volume development portion of this? So I think everyone should have everything they need to submit one this afternoon. Except an NTP for some people. All right. Any other questions, I guess, Spot in general? All right. So I guess that's it for right now. We can stop the recording. I'll download it and put it out there. If there's any other questions or anybody needs anything, just shoot me an email. Again, a reminder, everything goes to spot 6, to Peter and to Sarah. That way we're able to track everything. And as always, if there's any questions, just let me know and we'll do the best we can to answer them. All right, let me stop the video, and I appreciate everyone's time.